When the unnoticed worker became the most influential person in the office, it took everyone by surprise. The building was alive with the usual early morning hustle, but no one paid attention as Clara slipped in quietly, pushing her cleaning cart with the same steady rhythm she had maintained for years. Dressed in her plain blue uniform, she moved through the halls, her expression calm and unreadable. To the staff and executives, Clara was invisible, just a cleaning lady. The one who tidied their offices, emptied the trash bins, and sometimes exchanged a polite nod with the few who bothered to acknowledge her. At Ardent and Company, a major firm in the bustling city of Chicago, Clara had worked for over a decade, blending into the background. She had become accustomed to the dismissive glances and whispered comments when people thought she wasn't paying attention. "Why is she even standing there?" someone had grumbled recently when Clara waited patiently outside a meeting room, ready to clean once they were done. Clara, as always, didn't react. She kept her hands steady and her head low, silently enduring the daily slights. But Clara held a secret so powerful that it could upend everything those executives thought they knew. However, Clara wasn't reckless. She believed in biding her time, observing quietly, and waiting for the perfect moment. That moment, she sensed, was now closer than ever. The day began like any other. Clara polished the spotless glass panels, swept the office carpets, and organized the scattered items left on desks by the hurried employees. Conversations about promotions, profits, and company triumphs buzzed in the background, but Clara's attention was drawn to a louder discussion near the executive offices. "The investors' meeting is next week," one manager said with a laugh, his tone full of confidence. "The CEO is untouchable. There's no one bold or foolish enough to challenge him." Clara's hands tightened on her card as she paused briefly in the corridor. She knew something they didn't. They had no idea how mistaken they were. But Clara wasn't ready to reveal her hand just yet. With a calm demeanor, she moved on, tending to her duties as if she hadn't heard a word. The towering skyscraper that housed Ardent and Company was a symbol of wealth and success, its sleek glass facade regularly featured in business magazines. Inside, however, the atmosphere was anything but glamorous. The workplace thrived on ambition and cutthroat competition, where those at the top wielded power without consideration for those below them. Clara had spent years observing it all. She saw promotions go to the loudest voices, regardless of skill. She witnessed secret deals made behind closed doors and watched employees bear the brunt of mistakes not their own. At the center of this corporate web was Victor Landon, the CEO, a man known for his commanding presence and ruthless leadership. His booming voice silenced dissent, and his sharp criticisms left even the boldest employees reluctant to speak. To Victor, people were merely tools to achieve his goals. Clara had overheard countless dismissive remarks during her time at the company. Why is she still around? Victor had once said about a senior administrative assistant nearing retirement. "We're not running a charity." The injustices Clara witnessed daily piled up like stones in her memory. Employees in tears over minor mistakes, unfair terminations, and endless demands on the cleaning staff, all without acknowledgement of their contributions. These moments were not forgotten. Clara stored them away, each one building her quiet resolve. No one at Ardent and Company knew the truth about Clara. She wasn't just the cleaning lady. She was the company's largest shareholder. Her late husband, Henry, had been one of the earliest investors in Ardent and Company, acquiring shares when the company was still finding its footing. When Henry passed away unexpectedly, those shares, now a controlling stake, became Clara's. At first, Clara didn't know how to wield such power. She continued her work, unnoticed and underestimated, observing the company's operations from the inside. The role gave her a unique perspective. She saw what others couldn't, and over time, she began formulating a plan. The tipping point came one evening as Clara cleaned near the executive lounge. She overheard two senior managers laughing over drinks. They joked about an upcoming round of layoffs, dismissing the affected employees as dead weight. Clara clenched her fists, anger bubbling inside her. To them, those employees were numbers on a page, not real people with lives and families. That night, Clara decided she could no longer stay silent. For weeks, Clara quietly gathered information. She reviewed documents left out carelessly, noted conversations, and reached out to trusted advisors. A former colleague of her husband, now a legal expert, helped her compile evidence of unethical practices and misconduct. Together, they crafted a strategy to hold the company accountable. When the day of the shareholders' meeting arrived, the executive team was buzzing with confidence, expecting nothing out of the ordinary. Clara, however, pushed her cart into the boardroom with a quiet determination. She placed a folder on the polished table and, for the first time, spoke up. "I believe it's time we address some issues," she said, her voice steady and strong. The executives looked up in surprise. Victor, seated at the head of the table, dismissed her with a wave. "We're in a meeting. Leave." But Clara didn't move. "I'm here as the majority shareholder," she declared, watching the shock ripple through the room. "And I've had enough." Victor's smug expression faltered as Clara presented the evidence, detailed accounts of fraud, unethical decisions, and mistreatment of employees. The board, stunned, reviewed the information in silence. By the end of the meeting, Victor Landon was no longer CEO. Clara, the once invisible cleaner, had reclaimed her voice and reshaped the company's future. She didn't do it for recognition, but for the people who deserve better. And as the sun set on Chicago that evening, Clara left the building, not as a cleaning lady, but as a leader ready to transform a broken system. Clara stood in the lobby of Arden and Company, the familiar space now feeling like an entirely new world. The murmurs of disbelief and admiration followed her as she made her way to the glass doors, but she paid them no mind. She wasn't seeking applause or recognition. She had done what needed to be done. The dismissal of Victor Landon wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Clara knew that dismantling the toxic culture he had fostered would take more than one bold move. It would require rebuilding from the ground up, prioritizing fairness, respect, and accountability. But Clara wasn't intimidated. She had spent years watching and learning, and now she was ready to act. In the weeks that followed, Clara worked tirelessly alongside a team she carefully assembled. People who valued integrity and shared her vision for a better future. Policies were rewritten, the voices of employees at every level were heard, and long overdue reforms were put into place. The changes weren't immediate or easy, but they were necessary. Slowly, Arden and Company began to transform. As Clara walked out of the building that evening, the city lights glittered against the glass tower. For the first time, the reflection staring back at her wasn't invisible. It was a woman who had taken control of her narrative, not just for herself, but for everyone who had been overlooked or dismissed. The road ahead was still long, but Clara smiled as she stepped into the night. She had proven that even the quietest voices could echo loudly when backed by courage and resolve. She hadn't just cleaned the building, she had cleansed its soul, and she was just getting started.